Last night's episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live didn't just get awkward, it turned into a full-blown Hollywood disaster. Keanu Reeves, the famously calm and collected action star, shocked everyone by lashing out during a tense face-off with Jimmy Kimmel. What began as a normal celebrity interview spiraled into chaos. No one could have predicted the studio audience went from laughter to gas. In just minutes, Keanu Reeves, known for his roles in John Wick and The Matrix, arrived on set looking cool and quiet, but something behind his eyes hinted at a storm brewing. Jimmy welcomed him with a wide grin and the usual charm, but it didn't take long for the mood to shift. The moment Jimmy made a jab about Keanu's quiet guy image, the vibe changed fast. "You've been doing the same angry, silent guy for 20 years. Kimmel laughed. "Is that just your real personality now?" The audience chuckled, but Keanu's expression didn't move. There was no smile, just a slight blink, a tightening of the jaw, and then silence that spoke louder than words. Something was off, and people felt it immediately. Keanu leaned forward and said, "I play those roles because they reflect a kind of truth. Maybe you should try that sometime." The crowd gasped, unsure if it was a joke or a warning, but Kimmel didn't back off. He chuckled and pushed further. "Well, I guess that truth involves shooting 50 people in a suit without blinking." Laughter echoed again, but this time it was nervous. Keanu's eyes darkened. He folded his arms, stared at Jimmy, and said, "You think that's funny?" The tone was cold. The air got heavier by the second Jimmy tried to pivot, but it was too late. He had crossed a line that Keanu clearly wasn't willing to ignore. The intensity on Keanu's face was no longer acting, it was real. "You know what's not funny?" Keanu said suddenly. "People who think being a host means being disrespectful on live television." The crowd fell completely silent. Then, just as Jimmy opened his mouth to respond, Keanu stood up slowly, dramatically, and took one step closer to the host's desk. Tension filled the room like smoke. "Let's not pretend this is comedy," Keanu continued. "This is just you hiding behind a desk in a laugh track." A few people in the audience gasped. No one had ever seen him like this. Kimmel tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. "Wow, Keanu, I didn't know you were this sensitive," he said, but it didn't land well at all. That's when everything erupted. Keanu moved fast, not like in the movies, but real life fast, and kicked Jimmy's chair with enough force to knock it sideways. The audience screamed. The camera jolted. Jimmy stumbled back wide-eyed and completely stunned. No one knew what was happening, but it was happening live. Producers ran in from the sides of the stage as the band stopped playing. Mid-note, the screen briefly flickered, but the chaos was already unleashed across the internet. Security rushed to the scene, but Keanu raised a hand calmly and said, "Don't touch me." His voice was firm but strangely calm. Even after what he just did, Jimmy, still sitting on the floor, tried to speak, but nothing came out. His face said it all: disbelief, shock, and maybe even fear. The power had completely shifted. Keanu looked around, locking eyes with the stunned crowd. "This is what happens when respect is treated like a joke," he said. The crowd was dead silent. No claps, no laughter, just stunned faces frozen in place. The studio lights suddenly felt hotter as producers whispered frantically into headsets. No one could believe what just happened. Keanu Reeves had kicked Jimmy Kimmel's chair on live television. The camera quickly cut to the audience, and their faces said everything: eyes wide, mouths open, hands over hearts. This wasn't a bit, this wasn't rehearsed, it was raw and real. Behind the scenes, crew members scrambled to figure out if they should cut to commercial, but the chaos had people glued to their screens. Every second felt like a countdown to something bigger. Keanu took a final look at Jimmy, who was now back on his feet, rubbing his side, completely thrown off his usual game. The mood had shifted so far from comedy that no one dared laugh. "I came here to talk," Keanu said, loud enough for the cameras to catch it, "not to be made into a clown for your ratings." His voice echoed across the silent set. Jimmy, clearly shaken, reached for his coffee mug, trying to act unfazed, but the tremble in his hand gave him away. This was no longer his stage. And then, in a move no one expected, Keanu turned and walked off set slowly, confidently, with the crowd still frozen in disbelief. His boots echoed like thunder on the polished floor as he disappeared behind the curtain. A producer darted in front of the cameras to whisper something to Jimmy, but the mic was still live, and a few words were caught. "We've got a disaster." Within minutes, social media caught fire. Twitter exploded with hashtags like Hanner and Keanu kicks Kimmel, Gunnar Reeves revenge, and Gar's live TV legend. Fans and trolls alike couldn't believe their eyes. Clips of the moment were uploaded, edited, remixed, and analyzed by the second. One slowed down replay even added dramatic music, and it got 10 million views in under an hour. People online were split. Some praised Keanu for standing up for himself, saying he showed more emotion than in all 4 John Wick films combined. Others called it a PR nightmare. But one thing everyone agreed on this was unforgettable. The quietest man in Hollywood had just made the loudest statement of his career, and it was live for the whole world to see. Backstage panic had reached full volume. Jimmy's team was scrambling for damage control, throwing around words like lawsuit, edit, and emergency press release. Keanu's people were nowhere to be found. They had vanished with him the second he left the stage. No comment, no apology, nothing, just the sound of slammed doors and shockwaves. Kimmel was eventually helped off set during a commercial break, visibly rattled, but trying to keep his dignity intact. But the cameras caught a quiet moment. He muttered, "What the hell was that?" Meanwhile, the control room was spinning out. Some execs wanted to cut the entire segment. Others wanted to air it all raw, unedited, and real. It'll break records, someone whispered, and it did. When the uncut episode finally aired, millions tuned in instantly. Ratings skyrocketed. Every network was covering it, from TMZ to CNN to late-night competitors who couldn't resist the drama, the tension of that kick, the look in Keanu's eyes. Jimmy's stunned silence. It all became part of pop culture history overnight. Memes, think pieces, even conspiracy theories followed. People started asking, had something else happened before the show? Was Keanu pushed too far backstage? Was this all staged for ratings? No one knew for sure, but everyone had an opinion. Even Hollywood insiders chimed in. Josh should say he was in trouble the second he made that joke about Keanu's roles. More than one crew member said the air changed before they even walked on stage. By morning, the headlines were unavoidable. Keanu snaps on Kimmel, kick heard round Hollywood, late night turns violent. Every major outlet had a different spin, but the footage didn't lie. Clips of the confrontation were now being played across every channel, every platform, every device in the country. Nobody could stop watching, and nobody could believe what they saw. Keanu's fans rallied online, defending his actions with fierce loyalty. He's been disrespected for years and kept quiet. This time, he had enough. One viral post read with over 200,000 likes, but not everyone was on his side. Critics blasted the moment as unprofessional, unhinged, and even dangerous. The debate had taken over the internet like wildfire. Meanwhile, Kimmel's staff worked overtime, trying to spin the situation. A carefully worded statement was released. Last night's interview took an unexpected turn. We're reviewing the events and ensuring safety for future guests. But people weren't buying it. The statement didn't mention Keanu by name, and that silence only made things louder. Comment sections filled up with fire emojis, angry faces, and wild theories. Backstage sources started leaking details to the press. One claimed Keanu was upset long before the camera started rolling. Another said Kimmel's team tried to cancel the segment, but it was too late. At Warner Brothers Studios, executives reportedly held emergency meetings. Keanu was in the middle of filming a major sequel, and this headline was not part of the script. Insiders revealed he hadn't returned to set the next day. He needed space, said one production source. No one's pushing him to talk right now. Meanwhile, paparazzi were camped outside Keanu's home, outside Kimmel's studio, even outside ABC headquarters. Everyone wanted a photo, a quote, a glimpse of what would happen next. And just when things couldn't get more bizarre, a blurry photo leaked showing Keanu leaving the studio just hours after the incident, not alone, but with a handwritten note in his hand. Theories exploded. What was in the note? Did it come from Jimmy, from a producer, from someone else involved? Nobody knew, but everyone had a guess. Back on Kimmel's side, the show returned the next night without a mention of what happened. Jimmy kept things light, smiling through the monologue. But behind the grin, people noticed the stiffness in his delivery. Fans noticed something else too. Kimmel's jokes were tamer, his tone more reserved, and he didn't bring up any celebrity names for once. The fear of another live meltdown was clearly hanging in the air. Online number team, Keanu and number Kimmelgate were trending side by side, creating a digital battlefield where emotions ran high and facts got buried under opinions. Even celebrities weighed in. Some posted vague tweets with popcorn emojis. Others went Allen. One A-lister posted, "Kimmel's been poking bears for years. He finally met one that kicked back." Keanu's official team finally broke the silence with a short, cryptic message: "Respect goes both ways. We're moving forward." That was it. No apology, no elaboration, just a warning in disguise. Some say that statement said more than a full press tour ever could. It was cold, controlled, and yet undeniably powerful. People began to revisit past interviews, digging through every time Keanu had been mocked or dismissed in Hollywood circles. The clips surfaced fast, and they painted a pattern that fans didn't Like suddenly, this moment wasn't just about a kick, it was about something bigger: respect, image, power, and what happens when someone finally draws the line on live television. Meanwhile, inside, ABC executives were divided. Some wanted to cut all ties with Reeves, others saw the viral success as a gold mine and were already discussing offers for a follow-up interview. But word on the street was clear: Keanu wasn't interested in playing the PR game. He wasn't taking calls, he wasn't posting online, he wasn't showing up anywhere the media could find him, and yet his silence made him louder than ever. The mystery only fed the frenzy. Fans created theories, montages, fan edits, even a digital petition demanding Kimmel apologize publicly. Days passed, and still Keanu Reeves hadn't said another word publicly. Not a tweet, not a post, not even a public appearance. The silence was so loud it echoed across Hollywood, and in that silence, the story only grew bigger. More reporters dug into the confrontation, more clips surfaced, even audience members began selling footage from different angles. One close-up video showed the exact moment Keanu's boot hit the leg of Jimmy's chair, and the sound it made was enough to send shivers down your spine. Online creators released full breakdowns of the incident. Some analyzed Keanu's facial expressions frame by frame, others speculated that this moment was the result of years of bottled-up frustration. News programs began calling it the kick that shook late night hosts across networks made sly references, but none dared go as hard as Kimmel ever again. ABC's executives finally addressed it during a press call, calling it an unfortunate escalation, but confirming no lawsuits had been filed. Still, that didn't stop the gossip from spinning like wildfire. A few insiders claimed Keanu received private apologies from Kimmel's staff, but still refused to return any calls from Jimmy himself. The grudge, it seemed, had roots. Then came the curveball no one expected. A leaked internal memo from ABC suggested that Keanu's walk-off had actually boosted their ratings more than any show in 5 years. According to the document, advertisers doubled their bids for the next episode, and the network hit peak viewership across the board. The chaos had turned into pure profit. This revelation only fueled the controversy further. People began saying Keanu had exposed not just Jimmy but the entire machine behind entertainment. A well-known journalist posted, "Reeves didn't snap. He exposed the way we laugh at pain for profit." The post exploded across platforms, turning the moment into a cultural flashpoint. Think pieces flooded the web, influencers, professors, actors, all weighing in on what it really meant when one of Hollywood's most respected stars had finally had enough. Kimmel, meanwhile, continued filming his show, but something about it fell off. His usual spark was dimmed. His interviews were tamer, his jokes didn't punch quite as hard, and audiences noticed. Ratings were up, but the tone was different. Something had shifted for good. Then 2 weeks later, Keanu made a quiet, unannounced appearance at a tech summit in Tokyo. No press, no fanfare, just a brief talk about storytelling, silence, and self-control. He ended the panel with a single sentence that broke the internet all over again: "Sometimes the only way to be heard is to stop smiling." That clip went viral instantly, shared millions of times, with people calling it a mic drop without the mic. It became a statement, a meme, a moment frozen in time. Jimmy never publicly responded to the quote. Instead, he returned to his usual comedy routine, but never booked another interview with Keanu or anyone remotely connected to the incident. And then it happened. A letter arrived at Jimmy's studio. No return address, no signature, just 2 sentences written neatly on thick paper. "Respect is earned, not scripted. You forgot." That the handwriting was unmistakable. The studio staff froze when they saw it. Jimmy read it once, said nothing, and placed it in a drawer he locked. Without a word, that night's monologue was light and forgettable. No risks, no shade, no names, just filler jokes and fake smiles. But the crowd had changed. They weren't just watching for laughs anymore. They were watching to see what might really happen next. In the end, the kick wasn't just a moment. It was a message, a disruption, a warning, and maybe even a wake-up call for late-night TV. That the game had changed. Keanu went back to his quiet life, filming, creating, avoiding red carpets, and staying far away from Hollywood drama. But people remembered, they always would, and Jimmy, he kept the show running. The lights still came on, the band still played, but the sparkle of invincibility had dimmed, and the memory of that night hung in the air like smoke. No matter how many guests he interviewed after, people kept asking the same thing: is this the episode where Keanu kicked him? And so that night on live television became more than just a viral moment. It became a cultural shift, a modern legend. The night A quiet man kicked back and shook the whole world. Kimmel stayed quiet on that part, not a word about the kick, not a single reference in his opening monologues, not even a subtle wink to the camera. It was like it never happened except it had. And the internet never forgets. If you love the shocking story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your take on the wildest moment late night TV has ever seen.